Hello, insightful Scorpio. Some of life's most meaningful turning points rarely arrive with dramatic announcements. They often begin as a quiet feeling beneath the surface, a subtle awareness that the version of you built to survive may no longer be the one meant to guide your next chapter. If that feeling has been following you lately, perhaps there is a reason you found your way here today. This is more than a conversation about astrology. It's an invitation to look beneath familiar patterns and notice what your inner world may already be trying to reveal. If something within you encouraged you to pause here, then give yourself permission to listen without rushing for answers. Together, we'll explore the symbols, archetypes, and quiet movements that often accompany periods of personal transformation. This isn't about predicting a guaranteed outcome or promising that life suddenly changes overnight. It's about recognizing how healing can begin when you stop measuring yourself by old fears and start meeting yourself with greater honesty and compassion. Perhaps you've spent years believing that staying guarded was the safest way to move through the world. You learned to carry more than you admitted, trusting your resilience while keeping the most vulnerable parts of yourself carefully hidden. That strength helped you through many seasons, but it is worth asking whether every wall you built is still protecting you, or whether some of them have begun keeping meaningful connection at a distance. What once served as protection may now be asking to become understanding instead. Have you noticed a quiet restlessness that is difficult to explain? Maybe your dreams feel more vivid, your intuition seems harder to ignore, or you've begun questioning habits that once felt permanent. Those experiences don't have to be interpreted as predictions. They can simply be signs that your perspective is evolving, inviting you to explore yourself with fresh curiosity. Like deep water that slowly settles after a storm, clarity often appears when you stop forcing it. Before we explore the symbols ahead, I want to say something that deserves to be heard. Scorpio, I see the strength it has taken to keep moving through uncertainty. I see the moments when you chose endurance because it felt safer than letting anyone witness your uncertainty. Whether anyone acknowledged those quiet battles or not, they became part of your story, and stories like yours deserve compassion before they seek change. If this reflection speaks to something you've been carrying, I'd love to hear what brought you here today. Was it a feeling you couldn't quite explain? A recurring thought, or simply a sense that it was time to look inward? Share whatever feels meaningful to you in the comments, and let that small act become the beginning of a conversation with yourself as much as with this community. Sometimes the most important changes don't begin with a breakthrough. They begin with a single honest realization that gently shifts everything else. That's the atmosphere I sense surrounding you now, Scorpio. Beneath the questions you've been carrying, there may be an invitation to rediscover your own value. Not because you have finally earned it, but because it has been quietly waiting beneath every layer you once believed you needed to survive. From an astrological perspective, Scorpio is often associated with periods of profound inner renewal rather than quick external change. Your traditional ruling planet, Mars, reflects the courage to act with conviction, while Pluto, the modern ruler of Scorpio, symbolizes transformation, release, and the remarkable ability to emerge stronger after letting go of what no longer belongs in your life. Whether or not a particular transit is active, these archetypes invite you to ask a deeper question. Which version of yourself still deserves your loyalty, and which one has quietly reached the end of its purpose? This isn't about proving your worth or waiting for life to finally reward your efforts. It's about recognizing that self-respect grows when you stop measuring yourself through old survival strategies. The abundance explored here is not limited to finances. It can also appear as emotional freedom, healthier boundaries, meaningful opportunities, or relationships that no longer require you to hide who you are. Lasting change often begins with the way you relate to yourself before it becomes visible anywhere else. Scorpio, you may recognize patterns that have traveled through generations, habits of protecting yourself by staying guarded, believing vulnerability was dangerous, or feeling that trust always came with a cost. Those patterns are not signs of weakness. They were ways of surviving. But survival and living fully are not the same thing, and there comes a moment when the very armor that once protected you begins to limit the life trying to reach you. As your perspective evolves, you may notice that certain relationships, environments, or familiar routines no longer feel aligned with the person you are becoming, that doesn't automatically mean something has gone wrong. Sometimes change feels uncomfortable because identity is shifting before circumstances fully catch up. Like a river quietly changing its course beneath the surface, transformation often begins long before it becomes visible to anyone else. You may also find yourself rethinking what it truly means to receive. Instead of chasing every opportunity through constant effort, perhaps this season invites you to recognize the difference between intentional action and exhausting resistance. Rest is not the absence of purpose. It is often the place where clarity settles and where your next decision becomes easier to recognize. If you'd like a symbolic way to support this reflection, consider surrounding yourself with colors that evoke Scorpio's archetype of depth and renewal. Deep indigo can represent intuition and quiet self-awareness. Burgundy may remind you of resilience and emotional courage. Silver reflects clarity beneath the surface, while charcoal symbolizes the wisdom found after releasing what no longer serves you. These are artistic symbols rather than mystical guarantees, gentle reminders of the qualities you may wish to cultivate within yourself. Whenever doubt appears, remember that life's deepest transformations rarely follow a schedule we can predict. Looking back, many of us can recognize moments that seemed uncertain while we were living them, yet later revealed themselves as turning points. Some people call that coincidence. Others call it grace. Whatever language speaks to you, there is comfort in knowing that not every meaningful change announces itself before it arrives. So let me ask you something, Scorpio. What part of yourself have you quietly outgrown, even if letting go still feels unfamiliar? If you'd like, share your reflection in the comments below. Sometimes giving honest words to an inner truth is the first step towards seeing it more clearly. As we move deeper into this reading, the symbolism becomes even more revealing. The cards are not here to predict a fixed future. They offer mirrors that help illuminate your current inner landscape. The cards that stand out most strongly are Death, the Hermit, and the Empress. Together they describe a journey of release, self-discovery, and renewal. Death speaks of transformation rather than endings. The Hermit reminds you that lasting wisdom is often found through honest reflection, and the Empress suggests that genuine abundance grows naturally when you stop trying to become someone other than yourself. The message these symbols reveal is both simple and deeply personal. You no longer have to measure your value by how much you can endure or how much of yourself you can keep hidden. The identity that believed strength meant carrying every burden alone has served its purpose, but it is no longer the only way forward. Real resilience isn't found in endless survival. It begins the moment you allow yourself to live without constantly preparing for the next wound. The Hermit offers a quieter kind of wisdom. Rather than asking you to search for approval, this card invites you to become familiar with your own inner voice again. There is safety in slowing down long enough to notice what truly belongs to you and what has simply become habit. Support becomes easier to recognize when you stop believing you must deserve it first. Then the Empress enters, not as a reward waiting at the finish line, but as a reminder of what has always existed beneath every layer of protection. She speaks of abundance that grows naturally from self-acceptance rather than relentless effort. Her presence suggests that receiving is not something you achieve after proving yourself. It becomes possible when you stop arguing with your own worth. Scorpio, perhaps you spent years believing your value depended on being the strongest person in every difficult situation. Maybe you became the one who carried pain without speaking about it, who trusted self-reliance more than vulnerability, who believed that if no one saw your struggles, no one could use them against you. That strength deserves respect, but it doesn't have to become your permanent identity. Over time, another voice may have quietly formed beneath that resilience. It whispered that letting someone in was dangerous, that lowering your guard invited disappointment, that staying emotionally hidden was the safest place to be. Now a different voice is beginning to emerge. It doesn't deny your past. It simply asks whether every wall you built is still protecting you, or whether some of them have started keeping life itself at a distance. I once held on to a simple thought during a season when everything felt uncertain. It reminded me that transformation doesn't erase who we have been. It reveals who we have always carried beneath the surface. I share that idea with you not as a promise or a certainty, but as a reflection. Somewhere beneath every survival instinct, your deeper self already recognizes this truth. If you're looking for a place to anchor that awareness, begin with something surprisingly simple. Write down 3 qualities about yourself that have nothing to do with achievement, productivity, or how well you've carried other people's expectations. Don't explain them away. Don't soften them with self-criticism. Let them stand on their own and allow yourself to hear those words without immediately questioning whether you've earned them. If you'd like to share, tell me in the comments about one part of yourself you've come to appreciate more deeply than before. Sometimes naming our quiet growth gives it room to become something even stronger. There's still another layer worth exploring. Many people don't realize how long they've been surviving until peace begins to feel unfamiliar. Scorpio, when emotional vigilance has been your constant companion, stillness can seem almost suspicious. You may have become so accustomed to anticipating disappointment that calm itself feels temporary, as though you're waiting for something to disturb it. For a long time, control may have felt like security. You learn to stay several steps ahead, reading every situation carefully, protecting your heart before anyone else had the chance to reach it. Those instincts were understandable and perhaps even necessary for a season. But what once kept you safe can quietly become the very thing that limits your freedom. This is why your current transformation feels so significant. It isn't asking you to become someone completely different. It's inviting you to build a relationship with yourself that no longer depends on constant defense. Real abundance isn't measured only by resources or success. It also appears as the freedom to trust your own judgment, to experience joy without expecting it to disappear, to accept kindness without wondering what it will eventually cost. As that shift continues, you may notice yourself responding differently to life. Instead of controlling every outcome, you begin choosing what genuinely deserves your energy. Instead of carrying every emotional weight alone, you allow others to meet you where you truly are. Instead of hiding your depth behind silence, you discover that authenticity often creates stronger connections than perfection ever could. There may still be moments when vulnerability feels unfamiliar. That's completely natural. Growth rarely asks us to abandon courage, it asks us to redefine it. Perhaps courage is no longer found in never breaking. Perhaps it lives in allowing yourself to be fully seen without believing that openness makes you weak. I'd like to leave you with one small practice. When this reflection is over, find a quiet place where nothing competes for your attention. Write down 3 truths about yourself that you respect, not because of what you've accomplished, not because of what you survived, but because they reflect the person you are becoming. That those words exist without apology, because lasting self-worth begins with recognizing yourself before asking the world to do the same. And as you write those 3 truths, give yourself one simple rule. Don't follow them with "but." Don't explain them away or soften them with doubt. Let each one stand on its own. This is how self-worth slowly becomes something you experience, instead of something you keep trying to earn. It grows through quiet honesty, repeated often enough that your own voice begins to believe it. Scorpio, perhaps your life has asked you to be resilient more times than you ever expected. But resilience was never meant to become your entire identity. You weren't created simply to survive difficult seasons. You were also meant to grow beyond them. You don't have to feel completely fearless before taking the next step. You only need to be willing to meet yourself with a little more openness than you did yesterday. Imagine waking up one day and realizing that your relationship with security no longer feels shaped by fear. Not because every uncertainty has disappeared, but because you've stopped believing that peace must always be earned through constant vigilance. That kind of stability is quieter than most people imagine. It isn't built on appearances. It grows from knowing that your sense of worth remains steady, even when life changes around you. Many of us inherit stories about success, resources, and safety long before we ever question them. Perhaps you learned that asking for more invited disappointment or that trusting life too deeply would eventually leave you vulnerable. Those beliefs often settle beneath the surface until they begin influencing the choices we make without our even noticing. Recognizing them isn't about blaming the past, it's about deciding which stories still deserve a place in your future. From a symbolic astrological perspective, Scorpio's journey has always been connected with transformation rather than accumulation. The archetype of Pluto speaks to releasing identities that have outlived their purpose, while Mars reminds you that true courage isn't only found in fighting through difficulty. Sometimes courage appears in choosing a different path than the one you've always known. Growth begins when awareness replaces automatic patterns. Because of that, abundance becomes more than a financial idea. It reflects the way you invest your attention, your energy, and your trust. You may discover new opportunities, unexpected collaborations, or practical changes that support your long-term well-being, but those possibilities are strongest when they grow from a healthier relationship with yourself rather than from fear of not having enough. External progress often follows the inner decision to stop living by old limitations. The patterns carried through families and generations are rarely broken in a single dramatic moment. More often, they shift through small choices repeated with intention. Every time you respond from awareness instead of old fear, every time you choose honesty over emotional armor, you quietly begin writing a different story. That kind of change may not always look extraordinary from the outside, but it has the power to reshape everything that follows. I've watched people transform circumstances they once believed would never change, and what stood out most wasn't luck or perfect timing. It was the moment they stopped defining themselves by the experiences that had shaped them. Their lives began changing because their relationship with themselves changed first. That inner movement became the foundation for everything else. So let me ask you something, Scorpio. What might become possible if you trusted yourself just a little more than you trusted your old fears? Not because you're chasing more for the sake of having more, but because you've begun recognizing that living fully requires space for possibility as well as protection. If your relationship with abundance has ever felt complicated, write this somewhere. You'll see it from time to time. My worth isn't something I have to prove. It is something I choose to remember. Let those words become a gentle reminder whenever old doubts begin speaking louder than your own wisdom. As we continue, another layer begins to reveal itself. There comes a point in every transformation when even the strongest roots can no longer remain hidden beneath the soil forever. Eventually, growth asks to become visible, not because it has finally earned permission, but because it has quietly become strong enough to emerge. Scorpio, perhaps you've spent years becoming the person everyone believed could handle anything, the one who carried responsibility without complaint, who remained composed while processing storms no one else could see, who protected others by keeping your own struggles locked away. That version of you served an important purpose, but now you're being invited to discover who you are, beyond the role of simply enduring. For a long time, that version of you served an important purpose. It helped you survive experiences that demanded strength, caution, and resilience. It taught you how to endure uncertainty and protect what mattered most, even when no one else understood what you were carrying beneath the surface. But somewhere along the way, protection may have slowly become isolation, and resilience may have started asking more from you than it was ever meant to. What began as wisdom gradually became habit, and what once shielded your heart may have quietly begun keeping joy at a distance as well. Perhaps no one ever told you directly that love had to be earned. Instead, the lesson arrived quietly through disappointment, silence, or moments when vulnerability didn't feel safe. Over time, you may have concluded that showing less emotion meant staying in control, that asking for support meant risking rejection, or that carrying everything alone was simply who you were. Little by little, those experiences shaped the lens through which you saw yourself and the world. Those beliefs were understandable, but they don't have to remain permanent, especially when they no longer reflect the person you are continuing to become. A quieter truth is beginning to emerge now. You don't have to become someone different before you're worthy of kindness, rest, or genuine connection. Healing is not a finish line you cross before life finally opens its doors. In many ways, healing is simply the willingness to stop fighting yourself long enough to recognize what has always been true. Your value has never depended on how perfectly you've managed your pain or how successfully you've hidden it from the world. It has always existed beneath every layer of fear, waiting patiently for your own recognition. The version of you that expected every burden to be carried in silence deserves gratitude, not judgment. That version helped you through seasons when those instincts were necessary. It found creative ways to survive circumstances that asked far too much of you, and for that it deserves compassion rather than criticism. Honor that strength with kindness. Then gently allow it to step back. You are entering a chapter where courage is measured less by endurance and more by honesty, where trust becomes a greater source of strength than constant vigilance, and where allowing yourself to be seen no longer feels like surrender, but like freedom. Life isn't asking you to prove yourself before you're allowed to receive something meaningful. If anything, it reflects the relationship you've been building with yourself all along. As that relationship grows healthier, you may find yourself responding differently to opportunities, to challenges, and even to your own inner voice. Decisions that once felt confusing may become clearer because they're no longer filtered through fear alone. Lasting change rarely begins by forcing life to change first. It often begins when you stop arguing with your own worth and start treating yourself with the same patience you've so freely offered to others. Think about the moments when you dismissed your intuition because it felt safer to doubt yourself. Remember the times you minimized your progress or kept your dreams hidden because staying unseen felt more comfortable than risking disappointment. Perhaps there were opportunities you quietly stepped away from, not because you weren't capable, but because part of you questioned whether you truly belonged there. Those habits once protected you, but perhaps they no longer reflect the person you're becoming. The voice of fear grows quieter each time you choose trust over old instinct. Real prosperity is more than success or security. It includes the freedom to trust your own judgment, to experience joy without expecting it to disappear, and to allow meaningful relationships to grow without believing you must always stay guarded. It also means creating a life where peace is no longer something you borrow for a moment, but something you carry within you. That kind of abundance cannot be built through fear. It grows from a deeper sense of inner stability, from knowing that your value remains steady regardless of circumstances, and from recognizing that confidence often grows quietly before anyone else can see it. If you're ready for a simple practice, write a letter to the version of yourself that carried so much in silence. Thank them for their resilience. Acknowledge the wisdom they gained and the strength they showed. Remember the moments when they kept moving despite uncertainty and the quiet courage it took simply to continue. Then gently tell them they no longer have to carry every responsibility alone. They brought you this far, but they don't have to lead every step that comes next. Let that conversation become an act of gratitude rather than goodbye, honoring the past while making space for something new. Transformation doesn't ask you to erase your past. It asks you to stop living as though your past is the only story available to you. The more you release the belief that love, peace, or abundance must be earned through struggle, the more naturally those experiences can become part of your life. This isn't about pretending difficult seasons never happened. It's about allowing those experiences to become sources of wisdom instead of permanent definitions of who you are. Not because you finally passed a test, but because you've begun meeting yourself with greater acceptance and understanding. Scorpio, are you ready to stop defining yourself by the versions of you that were created only to survive? Beneath every layer of protection is a quieter self that has been waiting patiently, not to become someone new, but to be fully seen. That part of you has never disappeared. It has simply waited for the moment when safety could come from within rather than from the walls you built around your heart. You're not your wounds. You are not your defenses. You are the awareness that has continued growing through every season of your life, carrying both the lessons of the past and the possibility of something far more expansive. Take a moment to reflect on this question. What part of yourself are you finally ready to release? And what truth about yourself are you ready to trust instead? Give yourself permission to answer honestly, even if the answer surprises you. If you'd like, share your reflection in the comments. Sometimes putting honest words to an inner realization is the first step toward living it, and your reflection may quietly encourage someone else who is standing at a similar crossroads. Before we finish, I'd like to leave you with a simple blessing. May you find clarity whenever life feels uncertain. May you remember that periods of transformation often begin quietly, long before they become visible. May you continue trusting yourself even when every answer hasn't appeared yet. And may each step forward remind you that growth rarely asks for perfection-only presence. Above all, may you continue discovering that your worth has never depended on how much you endured, but on the simple truth that your life already carries inherent value. If today's reflection resonated with you, I'd be grateful if you supported the channel with a like or subscription. If you'd like to help us continue creating thoughtful astrology content, you'll also find a support link and a QR code in the description. Every kind gesture helps this community continue growing, allows these conversations to reach more people who may need them, and I'm truly thankful to share this journey with you. Above all else, Scorpio, remember this. You are not falling behind. You are not defined by yesterday's fears, and you are not trapped by the patterns that once protected you. Every step toward greater honesty is already part of your transformation, and every moment you choose authenticity over fear becomes another quiet turning point. Your journey doesn't ask you to become someone else. It invites you to fully inhabit the person you have been growing into all along. One thoughtful choice, one honest breath, and one courageous step at a time.